You're welcome back. The agenda is the road to 2024 on the Situation Room on Citi TV. So in the Situation Room on Citi TV, all the analysis coming up. Big two political parties. Of course, we do know that we are in a multi-party democracy, but other parties haven't done much to deserve to be on this particular platform. I remember in 2008, PNC did so well with 4 MPs in Parliament. CPP had 3. After that, they've all disappeared. Bernard, the parties to look out for would be the NDC and the MPP.
Yes, so they are the 2 leading parties, but there are other parties who also get coverage as and when they do something that's newsworthy. But you're right, these are 2 big parties trying to outsmart each other ahead of the election. And there are big, big things happening. So the contrast is interesting. So yes, there's NDC, MPP, and there are others, but the 2 parties are very different in terms of even their calendars, right? So as we speak, the opposition party has made it very clear they don't have time. So in 3 weeks' time, on the 13th of May, the NDC will be doing a primary to choose not just the presidential candidate, but to choose all their parliamentary candidates at once, on the same day. Now, the MPP's calendar is a mixed bag. In fact, it will take us equations to even figure out. But that's the first thing. So whilst the NDC and MPP are different from the others, they are different in terms of the dynamic within the 2 parties and what this election means for each of them, which we can explain later.
So currently, the NDC is settled. Before mid-May, they would have settled everything. They would have a flag bearer. They would have parliamentary candidates in both orphan and non-orphan constituencies. And they are even doing 276 because they've created a constituency in South. They want to elect a candidate hoping that the EC would put someone there or create a constituency properly so-called so that they can contest in that area. But the MPP order is rather a tall one, isn't it?
So MPP would then take 13 days after the NDC choose their candidates. This MPP will now open nominations for their presidential.
In June.
26th May, they open the nominations. The nominations last for a month, so about 24th June.
Yeah.
Then, depending on the number of candidates they get, they will do something they call a special delegates congress to whittle down the number to 5.
A super delegate.
So that will be in August, because the real date they are looking at is November for their presidential, right? So NDC finishes in 13th May. MPP has 13 days after that to just open nominations, 1 month for the filing process. Then you have the August, if possible. So the August event is a possibility, right? The date you're looking for MPP is 4th November.
That's the main Congress to elect a flag bearer.
Because while the opposition party is very clear that they want to give their candidates visibility because they have a lot more work to do, because there's something called incumbency advantage, where if you launch a borehole project, you do anything, you get visibility. Yeah. So you can campaign without campaigning. The NDC doesn't have it that way, so they have to do theirs early. Now, the issue with the MPP is that you don't want to have... So this tends to happen when you have an incumbent party with a sitting president who's not going to be the candidate. There's always this tension between those who are saying, look, the president is one, let all the attention be on him, versus those who are saying, look, we need to market our candidate. So that back and forth arrived at a compromise, 4th November, which is 6 months after the opposition party does theirs, all right? Then you're going to have the parliamentary one, which is even more interesting. So in the NDC's case, the parliamentary is all on the same day. For the MPP, again, they've given a long date. They're going to open nominations somewhere around June, and they're going to have the orphan constituencies, as you call them.
So before you even go to Parliament, so just to be sure, the NPP's Congress would be divided in 2 parts if the candidates or aspirants are more than 5.
Yes.
If they are more than 5, the special one is happening on the 26th of August.
Yes.
If you are a member of the NPP and you qualify, and it's just a few people who would be...
Yes, so that's a good point. So there's a difference between the people who vote here and those who vote here. This is a bigger electoral college. This is huge.
So these people whittle down the figure to 5. And they learned this lesson from 2007, where they had 17 candidates running. And they went to Congress and decided, listen, we had 17 people on the ballot paper. It didn't make any sense. Henceforth, if there is a number more than 5, we would put it to a special delegate known as the Super Delegates Congress.
Yes.
They would then bring everything down to 5. And that's a very smaller number. I don't know what you think of that. Is that even fair that you make a smaller electoral college decide for a bigger electoral college?
I think the political parties learn from their history. And don't forget that in 2007, this was the first time the MPP had, as a party, was in power for a long time. So a lot of things were not clear. and the lessons they learned from the division, the unwieldiness of that whole process arrived at this. It makes sense, right? If you are strong on the ground, you definitely should be able to be in the top 5. This is the assumption. Although you could argue that the people here are so many, this is more national. So if the people here are not up to 30,000, whatever small number you have, 2,000, whatever number, it could disadvantage candidates who are truly on the ground. Be that as it may, is for convenience and economy and also party
But
unity.
my point is that we say that votes are bought. We want to widen the net so that you cannot buy. I remember when NDC said, let every card-bearing member of the party vote, they said that it is because we don't want anybody to buy votes. This smaller electoral college can be bought, quote and unquote. But this bigger electoral college cannot be bought. I think that should be the fair assumption. So if you want to really throw it to the people...
I don't want to frame it that way. For me, every party has their internal mechanisms for deciding on how to select. So, look, they nominate... What about vetting processes? Then you could also say a vetting process, because a vetting process can disqualify you.
Yeah, very
when you run for an election, they can say, you don't qualify. So you don't even get on the ballot.
That's
so
true.
These are parts of processes. You can say this is like an extended vetting to choose 5. That
makes sense.
okay.
Okay, so that again, that's the party deciding, and they do that. So I think in the US, they do the caucuses before the main thing. So people keep falling apart. Then they go to the parliamentary, and then they have again a long calendar they are working with.
I'm going to walk you through the primaries calendar for the parliamentary. It's very interesting. So open nominations on 16 June. All right. So whilst they are opening the nominations for presidential on 24th May, the so-called orphan constituencies have theirs on the 16th of June. Again, they give 1 month, so up to 14th July. So you have a whole month where there are 137 MPs. I think one is dead, so 136. So the 137 that NDC has, they will open nominations there.
Over there.
And then they will do elections between 1st August to 2nd December, right? So within the period they'll be doing their staggered primaries for orphan constituencies, they would hold their special delegates conference within that period, and also hold their national 4th November main presidential primary within that window.
That same period, okay.
Then, because they don't want to threaten the unity in Parliament, all sitting MPs will have a special treatment. So what they'll do is that they're going to say, for constituencies with sitting MPs, they'll be given the courtesy of knowing who the flag bearer would be in November, and then on the 20th of December, they now open nominations for the constituencies that have sitting MPs. And then they allow for just 2 weeks. So by 4th January, they would know who the candidates are. Then they vote on the 24th of February. So giving essentially candidates less than a year to campaign between 24th February and the election in December.
Again, because they don't want to shake up the system in Parliament. This is a very complex Parliament they have. Every member there matters. So give them as much room and laxity as you can so that they stay into February, so that you don't disturb their backyard. I don't know how the party is going to manage, though. If I'm an incumbent MP, we have been told that there's no contest, and yet there's a guy who is running around campaigning. I don't know how they're going to really deal with that, because they're trying to protect their MPs even though they say they're not. But that may also come at a disadvantage.
And it's a very good point. It's back to the tension between governance and politicking. So there's one president, but there's going to be a candidate who is not the president. Attention is on the president to deliver what he promised, but they also need to help the guy who's going to take over, in their view, to campaign. It's the same thing.
Okay.
You don't want to disorganize Parliament with your elections. So let the 136 stay in Parliament, focus on the work, pass the bills, give them the courtesy of knowing who the candidate will be, and then also shorten the time and the amount of money they spend. Now, the other thing you don't know is that the longer an election takes, it's like a project. The longer a building project takes, the more money it costs. So in a sense, the opposition party's plan is more sensible. One day, 13th May, Asemasa. But MPP is going to start from 26th May all the way to 24th February.
The budget is not
It's a war of attrition. It can wear people out. Some would argue that it can prepare them for the main fight. But because our internal politics are so tight and competitive, I feel it's going to wear some of the candidates out. By the time they have to actually campaign from June, July, August 2024, spend all their money.
So what matters is that next month, NDC would have chosen a flag bearer parliamentary candidate in 276 constituencies. NPP would have still been waiting to start, and it is going to be a process that has been staggered, like Bernard has explained. So by November, quarter, we should have a flag bearer for the NPPs. Then we know who replaces Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, by which time he may become lame duck. Then in February next year, and I don't know why they chose 24th February of all dates.
It's because it's a very interesting date.
I mean, for NPP to choose 24th February for, anyway, let me leave it.
For those who don't know, 24th February is the day Nkrumah was overthrown. So, and a lot of of course, the opposition to Nkrumah was the antecedent of the NPP, the UGCC, and the United Party. So, but these are parliamentary candidates.
It's not related.
So it's not, I don't know.
Don't mind me, I'm just going on a different time. So that's what happened. By 24th February 2024, we would have seen who is the NPP parliamentary candidate for which constituencies. And then we start looking at the bigger election.